afternoon, our dear viewers. We welcome you to this week's community show. The community show is convened by Center for Constitutional Governance and Express TV. On this show, we tackle issues that affect communities. We tackle things that impact on the lives in communities of people in Uganda. And today's topic is one that has been around for some time, one that continues to be a subject of discussion in the political circles, economic circles, and in the general community. And that is the issue of labor export. In 2021, labor exports that are also connected to the issue of employment in the country, which we discussed, some time back on this community show, and which, if you did not watch our discussion on employment, please, you can look up in our archives that our discussion on employment is there. But today is specifically on the people who leave the country to go and work in other countries. This has had a big impact on our economy. Uganda gets about $2 billion per year from people who work outside. And many of these facts and figures will be later shared by our conversationists. However, the labor export industry has also faced a number of challenges, among which gross abuse of human rights, key being human trafficking. It has been reported that 9 million people were trafficked in 2021. And a big chunk of that, around between 25,000 of those people trafficked to about 40,000 were Ugandans. Varying figures again, but it's for sure that this industry has also had negative impacts and there's been human trafficking. Government has since halted the registration of new companies, labor exports, if I understand my facts correctly, but it's still, there are still challenges to that, and there's still much more steps needed. To help me further discuss this, I'm joined by two people. I'm joined by my conversationists that deal with this issue on a daily basis, and they will help us give perspective to this conversation. I'll ask them to introduce themselves and what they do, then we shall kick off the discussion. Over to you, David.
My name is Armstrong David. I am a teacher by profession, but I'm also a human rights activist and a politician at the same time. I'm also a student currently pursuing my studies at the Uganda Management Institute. But most importantly, I am one of those that have had interest in the matters concerning labor exportation in this country, and specifically concerning our girls, because you realize they constitute a bigger percentage of the labor, especially the domestic labor we export. Thank you, and we shall discuss the details together.
Thank you. Over to you, Darren.
Yes, thank you very much, Man and Madrin. My name is Darren Namatovu. I am a human rights activist and also a social worker. And I am also a member of the National Youth Parliament. I am also a team leader at Phoenix Student Foundation. And yeah, it's a pleasure being here with you. Though I think I should say this before we start. I think I have 30 minutes to go. I asked for like 1 hour and literally passed. So I hope I can be productive in the next 30 minutes that I.
Yeah, sure. And to begin with you, Darren, please, what can we know about this labor exports?
Yes. I don't know. This is a conversation that has been really going on. It's a conversation of, it's a political and an unpolitical conversation, but also me as a human rights defender, it's a conversation of human rights protection. Yes, labor export brings in a lot of money, yeah, to the country in the foreign money that comes in, and we see how it is growing. It is bringing back the economic institute of Uganda, but we don't look at how the government is benefiting from it, but how these private companies are really using this as an opportunity to actually, treat people badly, like do all these human trafficking things, and know at the end of the day, if they are able to give back to the government as it really wants, that if you're going to take like over 400 girls and boys out of this country, what are you giving back to the government? And if the moment they realize that, the moment they knew that that is what the government only needs from them, like it's as if like it's okay now. Okay, yes, it's okay. It's a better way to redeem the economic status of the country. But me as it's something that should normalize. There are better ways to bring back to the economic situation of the country without actually having to sell people, because me, I feel like that is like selling people, because people have no option now. Like you've given them out because of your selfish, motives, and which is not really right. But I don't know what the other person, I don't know what you think about it, but me as a person, labor export to be so intentional about that, not to just discuss it with emotions and who is winning and which party is really going away with it.
Yes, thank you. And you represent the youth. You are a member of the youth parliament. I mean, you've said that it's about nation and all that. How serious is this among the youth? What are the how have the youth been so much impacted or affected by this particular labor export phenomenon?
I think we should all just agree with the fact that the unemployment rate is here. It's really high. And most of the kids, the students are getting out of school, the youth, and they have nothing to do. There's no work, there are no jobs for them, But the only option is either to look for employment out of the country, or also to find better ways on how they can really survive in this quote unquote economy. Because when you're in school, they tell you when you finish school, when you have education, the end goal is getting a big job, like any job that you've really ever dreamt of. And we've seen it, we've seen that it's not the situation here. It's not what is happening, you know? So when we make labor export like a normal thing, I'm not really saying that I'm really against it. What I'm against is private companies, or how the people that are really benefiting a lot from it are going to look like it's really okay, you know. It's okay for them to sell out people out, to sell young people out there, because it's bringing in a lot of money. Because right now the government gets over 7 billion money from private companies that are taking, that are doing this business. So imagine 7 billion. 7 billion is a lot of money. And if it's already that much, it means it's not something we are ready to give up on. It's something we are going to still do because it is bringing in a lot of money. But how about the girls that are getting killed? How about the girls that are getting assaulted? I mean, the human trafficking, that are the girls that die and don't even come back here. We don't even get to hear about them. You know? How is the government regulating that? That yes, labor externalization is here. Yes, we are accepting it as it is. But then, what measures are in place? Maybe I don't know about them yet, because all I'm saying is girls dying in the UAE, is, I mean, boys getting mistreated, and no one is saying a thing about it, because all we are looking at is the money that is coming from the foreign exchange, you know, from this, I don't know, is it barter trade kind of? We are not protecting human rights if we are making the labor export as normal as it is. Yes, let's have it, but let's put in place ways how to also protect people, because it's not because the people that you're selling, because this is like literally trade. The people you're selling are the same people that are, I mean, that are dying. So what happens if they die? Are you still getting the money? You know?
Thank you very much, Darren.
Is this a picture that you want to portray and point out there?
Thank you very much, Darren. Yes, I want to come to you, David. What should we know about this, you know, phenomenon or this crisis? I don't know, whichever way you would put it. What should we know about this labor export or and labor externalization?
I think it is. It comes with the demands in the 21st century, and especially rising from issues of unemployment. We all acknowledge that unemployment is a global crisis. It is not just here in Uganda. This is an international concern. Except that as a country, our response in regard to exporting labor has not been appropriate. It has not been appropriate in the sense that we have not been able to regulate this exportation of our people, because exporting labor in itself is okay. I mean, all over the world, we are in the era of globalization. So it is, it's not a bad thing for you to leave Uganda and go work in Nairobi. I mean, that's okay. As long as you can find a decent job, I have no problem with you going anywhere, as long as you have something decent to do. So the issue of external labor here has been poorly handled. Those in it, doing it as a business, have taken advantage of our weaknesses as a country to exploit our people, to oppress, to make money at the expense of our people, how ugly it gets. Otherwise, if there were means of regulating the industry, I mean, this is one way we would use to solve the problem of unemployment that we all see in this country. If you look at the trends of labor expectation over the last like 10 years, the numbers have been growing year in, year out. The number of those that want to go out and look for jobs. This is a result of the pressure on our society, the pressure from our youth who do not have jobs. And like I said, it wouldn't be a bad thing if there was a way for these people of ours, for our people to find good jobs and work and go and make money. But the regulations have not been sufficient, and therefore the industry has got that ugly to the extent that convincing someone to go and get a job in some countries now, you are almost sending him to their grave. People would think you are sending someone to his grave, because the stories we have seen have not been very good in the recent years. And another point I want to make here is that our country and our leadership has not done much. There are very many professional jobs out there, very many. Some countries have taken advantage of these jobs. Looking at Kenya, looking at Tanzania, they have taken advantage of these jobs. Our neighbors have taken advantage of these jobs. You know these countries. But I think our system has not had a very appropriate response. There are professional jobs, but giving an example of Uganda, for example, if you intend to go for professional jobs, let's say in the Middle East, some of these jobs at times require accreditation. And as a country, it's unfortunate that we do not have an accreditation center. And therefore, if you want to go to let's say to UK as a nurse, let me give that as an example, then you have got to go to Nairobi, for example, for accreditation. You go to Nairobi, where you pay a lot of money. So our government has not invested in putting in place such systems, making sure we have an internationally recognized accreditation center, so that our people who are able to find professional jobs in some of these countries can take advantage of that and go and find decent work, as opposed to having graduates who have lost hope, reaching an extent of offering themselves to go to Saudi Arabia to do these agri jobs that we know, or that we all know about.
Thank you, David. I mean, I've just been looking here, and it seems, honestly, we have laws that are regulating this industry. There are bilateral, agreements between Uganda and some of the countries where people go. We have even a system and sort of external employment system or database that is able to track, and is to track the companies that take these people and track where the people are. And we have also regulations that are not so old, but they are here. We have regulations and rules and regulations governing the recruitment and employment of Ugandan migrant workers abroad. And among the things, they require accreditation of a company that is doing that. The company has to be registered. The company has to also, the company in another country has to also be registered, have complete legal status. The one in Uganda also has to have fulfilled all these statutory obligations. So there are regulations. They are bilateral agreements between countries. I'm wondering, why then do we continue to have this abuse of human rights? Why do we continue to have these many challenges when we already have regulations? I'll come back to you, David, if you have what to say about that, because I see there's nothing lacking. Maybe we could ask ourselves, how much have these regulations protected? But they're in place. I want to come to you, Ronnie. First you'll introduce yourself and tell us what we need to know about this industry, the labor externalization industry.
Thank you, Martin. I'm sorry I came in late. I got a bit of challenge in terms of time. I had actually thought that this engagement was to start at 10 a.m. Nevertheless, I'm here. And as you requested, my name is Ronnie Mukundane. I work as the Public Relations Officer here at the Uganda Association of External Recruitment Agencies, which people know as UERA. UERA is basically an organization or a body of only those that have been licensed by the government of Uganda to source and place Ugandans abroad. When I joined, I found, I think someone called Darren, a lady was submitting, and I think what caught my attention was the phase of sale of people. She mentioned that the government, or maybe the companies, or us in particular, we sell people, and the word of labor export. You cannot sell a human being. Ideally, when you do that, then you are not in labor externalization. This is labor externalization, it's not labor export. And when you externalize, it means that a person goes under clear, or what we call regular migration, being guided by the laws and regulations that govern the sector, and there has a particular period of time of which the person has to execute what his or her mandate is in terms of work. And just to make it brief, the people we externalize go after signing contracts. There's no way you can sell a person and the person goes when he or she knows what they're going to do. Ideally, that caught my attention, and I felt maybe I needed to throw a bit of light, maybe not enough light for now. Then maybe the other thing also, my brother David mentioned, which you have correctly explained, the absence was saying that the absence of regulations or the sector not being regulated, just to say. There is a statutory instrument number 47 of 2021, the very recent regulation which governs this sector, and this is born from that of 2005. So the sector is indeed regulated. The sector has, I would say, two laws. That one, and also the TPI, or Trafficking in Persons Act of 2009, which deals with those who are irregularly practicing this labor externalization, or those we call traffickers or human traffickers. So maybe we'll take it on from there as they try to explain more things. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Darren, I mean, some of your, what you said has been allayed, saying that this is not selling people, this is externalization. I mean, Ronnie has also said people sign contracts. But I mean, let's also face the fact, and as you come in, Darren, what option does a young girl who is unemployed, who has perhaps finished university or has some minimal education, what choice do they have? What bargaining power, and you will also answer that, Ronnie, what bargaining power do they have when they are signing these contracts? Honestly, it's very possible that they will sign because of the desperation or desperacy in which they are, So Darren, I don't know whether you have any further contribution to that, and considering that he was trying to allay your fears. Darren?
Thank you, Martin. I think I'll start off with adding on Ronnie, or maybe a question to Ronnie, when he said that these young people sign contracts, but then we could also understand the fact that most of these young girls, it's not only girls, but also the guys, the boys that are actually moved to these countries for employment, are illiterate. Like most of them do not have that sufficient education for them to actually be able to interpret what they are signing. I don't know. I don't want to really sound like maybe at some point they will be coerced to sign things they don't even understand. So I would push that question to Ronnie to tell me that how are these contracts, like, I don't know, communication friendly to these young people so that they are able to know what they are signing, what they are getting themselves into. That's because you should not just say that their contract, because you sign a contract, yes, you've given yourself up, like you're all there, you have no way out. But are we sure if you are really doing this with good intentions and pure hearts? Are these people knowing what they are signing? I don't know. I hope, Ronnie, you can answer that for me. And to get back to you, Martin, I have friends that have actually moved out of the country I have my sister that have gone out of the country to seek employment. And thank God they have not been mistreated, but I've seen what really happens to the rest of the girls, the rest of the boys that go in the UAE to seek, jobs. What the negotiation power, do they have a choice? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. So how are you making me negotiate when I don't even know my meal the next day? Of course, I'm going to accept your offer, I'm going to accept what you're giving me because I don't even know what I'm going to eat the next day. Or the only option I have is to go, like to accept what you're offering me. Most of these people, these young people are very excited when they are going. They don't even know what is coming for them. Yes, companies are here. They are in place and they're trying to help, like maybe keep track of these young people when they go out there. But also to Ronnie again, why do they die? Why do they have to die? Why do they have to get mistreated when they signed contracts? Do you also communicate to their employers directly when you take them? Because I think the only thing I hear is when they reach, it's actually it's like you guys are done. You either have a place you keep them and mentor them for some time, but when they're mistreated, I don't know what happens, what you do when they're mistreated, because we never see you coming out to protect them. Girls have died, boys have died, and it's not like, I don't know if it's something you're doing or I don't have information, but me, all I'm saying is people dying out there. Yes, we must agree that our economy is still growing and we are actually unable to create employment for over 30,000 people, graduates and those that graduate annually. But also this means that a country like Uganda, we are going to have to depend on labor export for a long time because we do not have employment in place to actually give these people the jobs that they need, Yes, labor externalization cannot solve the problem of unemployment unless there is a deliberate move, to solve the issue internally. So what are we doing internally before we even put these regulations in place? These laws are here, the bilateral laws are here, but I don't know if the government has signed them. Maybe if they came out and signed them, it would be a very good thing to legislate, also safety of these people. Because now we know that if these private companies are not there to protect them, if anything really happens, the government is here because it has signed, but the laws are there, but the government has not signed them. And if I'm wrong, I really beg to be corrected, but I don't think we have really signed these agreements yet.
Okay, thank you very much, Darren. I've been reading, something here, and I've been, listening to you, and this conversation. The question that comes to my mind, Ronnie, is, and you will help us take us through the process that is involved. As an example, to recruit one individual, from the initial stages to the very end. Yeah. And going back to the regulations, you, Darren, were reported to have had issues with the regulations. You and Igara have had issues with the regulations, and you complained about it, and you were reported here in the Independent of May 30th, 2022, where you expressly said that the policy did not consult you people, the policy did not involve the people who export these people or who externalize. So, but then I'm hearing here you were saying the regulations are good and they're okay. Do they really reflect your side of the story? Aren't they burdensome on you, as you have been reported to have, I must say, quote unquote, insinuated, before? So going back to you, David, yeah, I asked you a question, David, that I've forgotten, but I don't know if you remember. It was as a follow-up to what you had said, but also you could add on what Ronnie, and Darren have said. But also importantly, you as a political activist, why don't we see the government actively playing a role in protecting people who are going abroad? I mean, we've had all these many agreements, regulations, but we still have issues. It's for a fact that migrant workers in Qatar who have worked on putting the infrastructure for the World Cup have honestly been mistreated. Thousands of people have been killed in Qatar to prepare for the World Cup that we are all going to enjoy. People have died at sites. They've worked in horrible conditions. The figures are alarming. Why aren't we having governments here and there acting, all doing what they're supposed to do?
Thank you, Martin. First of all, I would like to briefly take you back to the issue of regulations. It is one thing to have regulations, but it is also another thing to have these regulations in practice. Because agreeable, of course, there are regulations, there are laws governing labor exploitation, but it's unfortunate. These guidelines, these laws are not put into effect. That is why recently there is this girl who released the video after suspecting that she was about to be killed and, was calling for rescue here back home, and had to take the intervention of the president to ensure that this girl was rescued. So, so that gives the magnitude of what I'm talking about. If there are regulations, why couldn't there have been assistance, for example, that this girl can get maybe from our embassy or maybe from the company that assisted her to secure this job? So a situation where someone gets issues in Dubai or wherever, and they feel the only person to rescue them is the president, then that gives you the system in which they operate. Their protection is limited, in my opinion. Secondly, I wouldn't blame these guys so much for signing some of these contracts. Because one, we must appreciate that most of these domestic workers are not very highly educated. Some, of course, are university graduates. Some are not. Some are P7 leavers, some are senior 4 leavers who just know basic English. And usually they manage to pass interviews and go for these domestic jobs on the basis of their ability to express themselves in ordinary English. And therefore, I would not blame them so much for signing a document that probably would need the interpretation of a lawyer, which lawyer they may not be able to access. And I also put them in a position of someone who goes to the bank to get a loan. Usually when you want a loan, and maybe there is something putting you on pressure. When you are signing these loan agreements, at times you don't even read them because of the need that you have. So these girls, I don't think I would blame them so much for signing these contracts and eventually ending up being victims of these contracts that they have signed. The only protection they have as Ugandans would be the government, a government that should put task these companies, say that these companies are clean in their operations, such that their operation, the way they operate is streamlined and can provide sufficient safety for whoever manages to secure work through their hand. Then finally, I wanted to make a comment on these companies. These companies are doing business. I was reading in the Observer, I think about 2 months back, a report that for each of these domestic workers, they manage to secure a job for. Or if a company in Saudi Arabia, for example, gives a demand here for, let's say, 100 workers, then each company is able to benefit, is paid around $1,000 to $1,300 for each of these girls, for each of these domestic workers. And therefore, these companies only look at the money. In most cases, I wouldn't want to generalize, but on a large scale, most of these companies only are interested in money because if they are not just interested in money, then they would be able to streamline their systems. And most of these cries we have had, one case after the other, wouldn't have all of these cases. But their interest is doing business, and they do business at the expense of lives, at the expense of Ugandans. They do not care because they're operating in a system that does not put them to task, such that they are doing a clean work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. And many questions have gone to you, Ronnie, as perhaps you already used. But we honestly cannot take away the fact that there is gross abuse of rights in this industry. I've just been saying, and you don't speak for countries, you speak for the companies, and I know there is limit to which you can honestly, confidently share information or be in control, and many things are also human and they happen not within the mandate of Igara. But let's face it here, Qatar, for instance, and Qatar is among the countries that host Ugandans. I mean, our major export, where we send our people mainly, is the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and Qatar. Qatar itself has reported 6,500 migrant workers who have died from gross abuse as this construction of World Cup stadiums and facilities was ongoing. And this is data that is everywhere. It has been reported by France 24, it has been reported by The Guardian, it has been reported by Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, name it. So, Ronnie, how, on top of the very many questions you're going to answer, how do you, as people in this industry, improve your image? Yeah, I know it's a lucrative business. People will perhaps continue coming. Uganda exports around 500 people on a day. Every day, between 400 to 500 every day. If you go to the airport, you see young people fleeing, an exodus, fleeing in veils, boarding planes, and usually they're actually hidden from the people. It takes us a lot of effort to see them, and you're able to see people in a line, dressed the same way, same style, same age of people. Even that brings a person to question, Why are people leaving the country in such a manner, dressed in such a dress code, all uniformed, not being allowed to speak to anyone? It's like they've been programmed. If it's already happening here at the airport in their country, what happens, outside? So Ronnie, please lay some of these, and you have quite a lot to talk about.
Thank you, Martin. You believe me, there are so many questions, and actually, my wish would have been, I think, after Darren, if I'd been given a chance to answer her, and when David came in, also to answer him, and also yourself, because I think there's even a time you posed a question regarding the recruitment process. So ideally, there's so much. I think there are some that could have missed, or some that.
Yeah, and if you can begin with the recruitment process, please. Yes, because it's the basis.
Actually, the recruitment process comes in somewhere. First of all, we need to understand and agree that migration is a human right. That we must agree, because this will help us understand what type of people do people believe, or do we believe should be able to go, and why others shouldn't go. We must agree that migration is a human right, and the labor migration in particular falls under the same. So as long as you have nothing to do in your country, not necessarily Uganda, in a country, people will always leave. Labor migration, of course, here we're looking at it in the context of external labor migration. But even when you look at it from the internal point of view, personally, the person speaking, I do not come from here, from Uganda or Central in particular, but I migrated from wherever I come from to come here for specifically labor. I don't know about you, Martin. I don't know about the others, but most probably they could have also migrated. It is as simple as that they couldn't be in their home districts, home, whatever it is, because they felt what their being there would not benefit them in terms of labor. So they had to move. That aside, Darren did mention a very critical issue of the level of illiteracy relating to contracts. Stating that the people being taken abroad, some of them, according to her, may really not be fit because they're illiterate. And do they even understand the contracts, for example, that they're saying? The perception or the practice is that the Ugandans, I'll speak ideally about Ugandans, the Ugandan language here, what we call the official language, is English. We might have added the Swahili, which may not be so popular, but the national language is English. And maybe the other thing I forgot to mention is that the licensed recruitment companies are licensed to source and place Ugandans all over the world. All over the world. It's just because most of the economies in the Middle East attract, or as we talk now, have these job vacancies that most people go to. We have had people being externalized through our members to Europe, to Poland. People have gone to the other countries, but also have Ugandans who are in China who have not been officially externalized. We have so many Ugandans in South Africa who have not been officially externalized. So it's not in a context that people are sent to a particular area. They are sent because of those pull factors, which I talked over the economy and as you read. But speaking into that, the language that is used in the Arab country, for example, in the Arab countries, is Arabic. It's just the official language. But what is the other that they also look into when it comes to communication? It's English. So they do not know too much English, but they use English as a basic form of communication. So the people we externalize, the first requirement is, in terms of education, of course, in terms of, literacy levels, is that you must be able to understand, speak, and be able to, basically be able to communicate in English. Because the person you're going to work with or work for will not use Arabic unless you, of course, understand Arabic. So that's a basic requirement. So you can be a P7 graduate, a senior 4, senior 6, as well as a university graduate, as long as you are able to understand English. I'll just leave it at that. Now, on whether the contracts they sign, they understand them. The contracts are signed from here. For example, for the case of Saudi Arabia, there is what we call, you'll agree with me that as I speak, some of the things will intertwine with the recruitment process. Now, in the recruitment process, we have what we call orientation or 14 days orientation. It's a mandatory process. Now, in there, the candidates are introduced to one, financial literacy, because they must be able to understand how they're going to use their money. They must be able to plan, because this is money, for example, most of them have not been earning. You will agree with me that the least pay or the least salary one earns, which is for the case of domestic work, is 900,000. That's an equivalent Ugandan shillings. Now, we understand most of the people we take under that caliber of the P7 dropout or graduate, if we could call it that way, or senior 4 and all that, may it not be earning more than 100,000 or maybe 150 while in Uganda, while working in Uganda, because these are the people who are working in saloons, these are the people who are working in maybe other people's homes, these are people who are working in supermarkets. They do not earn that much. Now, they must be taken through, of course, it is not by force, but they're also introduced, they're given knowledge on how to manage their money. Now, in here, they're introduced to banking systems and all that. That is one of the other items on the curriculum. The other is the culture. As you mentioned, you'll agree with me, I'll keep hitting here and there. You mentioned on how people travel. Why do they go the way you see them living at the airport? Why are they veiled? Why do they go that way? Yet for us in Uganda, you can fully travel, move with the way you want. We must agree that the countries they are going to, for those, for example, going to Saudi Arabia, it's a country that has its culture defined that way, that women, in this case, are always veiled, irrespective of the religion. You'll agree with me that Saudi Arabia has other religions other than Islam. And while you are in that country, whether you're a Christian, whether you're a Muslim, the rule or the law is that a woman must veil. So the people who are living this country, they do not go because that's what we want them to be dressed into, but that's what they must dress into, because that's where they're going. That's how people dress. Now, these things are taught them within this period, the training period I talked about. The other thing is the contract appreciation. Now, it brings us to the conversation of the contract. The contract has different clauses and terms. The contract is written in 2 different languages. If you have been able to look at it, it has English and Arabic. Now, because I mentioned that they must be able to understand English, but that does not mean that even here, while they're undergoing training, it will be English throughout. They have been at liberty to speak or to communicate within their languages they understand. And for that matter, the training centers, by the way, these training centers are accredited by the government to train specifically migrant workers who are going to travel for work. Now, the tutors or the trainers in these training institutions use different languages. So in other words, they translate this contract not necessarily from English to Luganda, but to even the other languages that people easily understand, each condition, each term. From there, at the time of signing, they do not, this is, we call it a 4-party contract. It has, you, the worker, signs, the employee. It has the signature of the employer, the person you're going to work for. It has the signature of the Ugandan company here, recruitment company, licensed. It also has the signature, or it is signed by the receiving company, for example, in Saudi Arabia, that is also licensed the other side, and accredited by our own government through the embassy in Riyadh. Now, it does not stop there. This contract is also signed by the next of kin, your next of kin, or the candidate's next of kin in this case. And the next of kin is briefed and is taken through the same process, translated for where the person does not understand English. Now, you will agree with me, Darren, and maybe the other colleagues, that at that point, there's nothing more that can be done. Ideally, if you cannot understand something in your own language, then you have liberty to leave and say, I do not want to travel. But that has not been the case. People have been able to understand, because it states clearly what are your obligations, what are the obligations of the employer, what are the obligations of the Ugandan recruitment company, and that is the receiving company. Then in the same way, David also mentioned about the contract, mentioned that this contract, to him, he felt it needed the presence of a lawyer because these people may not be that studied and all that. I want to inform you that this contract, for example, the one of Saudi Arabia, is derived from the bilateral labor agreement that exists between Uganda and Saudi Arabia. And in the same spirit, I'll want Darren to pick it because I think somewhere she was wondering whether these bilaterals are actually signed. I captured it somewhere. She was once asking whether the bilaterals that you talked about, Martin, between the government of Uganda are actually signed. By the time it is put in practice, is actually signed. And so far, Uganda has signed the 2 bilateral labor agreements, that one with the Saudi Arabia and government, and also that with the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. Apparently, as we speak now, the one of Jordan was put on hold, pending review, and the only operational one is the one with Saudi Arabia. We also, as the government of Uganda, signed an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, with the government of United Arab Emirates, but that has never been operationalized because of different challenges. So there is no bilateral, or in that case, or MOU that's operational between Uganda and UAE. So the only operational bilateral labor agreement that is being practiced or that is being implemented is that between Uganda and Saudi Arabia. Now, that bilateral labor agreement is not signed in just a speak of a second. It is drawn, it is reviewed by different, of course, the involving governments, and at different levels. And at the government level, the highest lawyer is what they call an attorney general. An attorney general is party to this before any government commits, by the way. For the little knowledge I have, is that the attorney general has to have gone through. And that did not leave this particular bilateral. So the attorney general went through, and of course, these contracts that have been, that as I said, have come out of this bilateral have also been reviewed by the relevant government legal departments. Now, at that moment, it doesn't need the presence of a lawyer to be present at the time the migrant worker is signing. So I hope I've tried to answer that. Then Darren also mentioned of, I think she mentioned a friend who works abroad and had difficulty in signing the contract while in UAE. I remember her mentioning that while in UAE, because at that moment she needed, I think it's she needed to sign this contract, because otherwise not signing, what would she or it? I want to tell you that signing a contract in a destination country is wrong. You must sign a contract in the country of origin, and in this case in Uganda. You cannot, because your process has to be regularly cleared. So you must leave Uganda as a worker or someone going to work as a migrant worker. Now, if the question would be, how did this friend travel to UAE? Because without a contract, without being cleared by the government, you must have either traveled as a tourist or as a visitor. And of course, that is using the tourist visa or the visitor visa. And then you reach the other side, just as we have seen, these other so many Ugandans who are being repatriated or deported, if I could use that hard word, from UAE. The 75,000 Ugandans who are there irregularly, who traveled there irregularly. This is the method they used. Now, when you're in the destination country and then you search for a job, you likely find a job, and you now go through the process of signing the contract. First of all, you can agree with me that you will not have so much bargaining power, because anyway, you're already in the hands of the other person. The ideal situation is that you are supposed to sign that contract while in your country of origin, whereby the parties are are in the process of recruitment, go through it, including the government, agree with the terms, and that contract must be that has been approved by the government. So for you to be safe. So I hope I've tried to answer her. Then she mentioned of why do people die abroad. I find this statement quite big, because I'm putting it as she mentioned. Why do people die abroad? Come on, I don't know even how to answer this. People die from anywhere, and we must agree. This is simple logic, really. We can't say why do people die abroad. People die from anywhere, and anywhere includes abroad. The biggest question should be, what are the circumstances that bring death to these people? To me, that's what I would look at. Because when you say Why do people die? Like, I think yesterday or the other day, we saw a video circulating on social media here, which has had been issued by Ugandan police, of the death of so many Ugandans dying because of border accidents. Can one ask, why do people die of border accidents? I think that would not be right. So the issue should be, what are the circumstances and what are the numbers? Martin, this will bring me to your statement where you mentioned the 6,500 death in Qatar. I do not know what period, and I do not know if you are able to get more information of how many of these are Ugandans, because we must agree that, for example, these countries, it's not only Ugandans there. We're not the only ones there. I'll tell you, for example, the case of Saudi Arabia. Uganda has 165,000 people there. Philippines has 2.5 Uganda nations there. Bangladesh has 5 million. You see, including other countries. Kenya has more than us, has, I think, 250 there, citizens there. So there are so many other nationals in these other countries. And when they give such a figure, which unfortunately I haven't seen, I'll request maybe after this, you'll be able to share with me so that I can read further. This 6,500, it's an alarming figure, but who are these people and what period are they talking about? Maybe you'll enlighten us more on that. Just to rush to the recruitment process, or maybe for it to be, I think it will be best if I tackle this issue of David, where he mentioned the issue of someone called Chotalime, the video that the distress call that she made, which he says attracted the attention of everyone. It went actually to everyone. And of course, we saw in the media repatriations being done and being mentioned, to have been done by the president. What happened to Chotalime, which I want us to understand, because it's part of the recruitment process. Any candidate who leaves Uganda officially to go and work abroad undergoes what we call medical tests. The medical tests are subjected to a person, of course, to ascertain the health status of that person to be able to go and work. Because you're not going to visit, you're going to work. So they must be able to see that you're medically fit to work. Now, in this particular case, we have what we call GCC accredited medical centers, not any other medical, not the general medical centers, but those that have been accredited by the Gulf Council or those countries in their cooperation. The way you see like East African cooperation, they have their cooperation for the Gulf, which is the GCC. They come here and set guidelines and ensure there are particular apparatus that is used to ascertain someone's health, because this is the same apparatus that is used the other side in the destination country. This is done for someone to be able to get a visa. So once you get a visa and you have been found medically fit, you get a visa, you travel. Once you reach your destination country, and for this particular lady, Chotalime Joan, Saudi Arabia, you undergo through the same process. They medically check you, number one, to be able to give you what they call an Igara. An Igara is a resident permit. When you enter a country for work, just the way foreigners come to Uganda, they acquire what is called a work permit if you're coming to work. We may be disadvantaged that we have so many irregular workers here in Uganda, or irregular migrants who are working, who have come in, foreigners. We normally see them, Indians, Chinese, they come in, but somehow they find themselves working. And to the best of my knowledge, most of them are even not cleared by the Internal Affairs, which is the immigration center here. But for the case of the people being taken abroad, and this particular girl, you undergo that medical test to be able to get that Igara. So it's under this stage that she was found to be medically unfit, and it was very clear. They mentioned what was found. They mentioned they had seen traces of TB, and I'll mention it on media because it has actually come on media, so it's no problem. She was found to have traces of TB, and at that point, she needed treatment. She was taken in the medical complex to undergo treatment. And it was very clear for those who were able to access the medical center, the medical report, that once the treatment is done, which according to them, medically, it would show that the TB is then not infectious. Should be issued an exit visa and returned to Uganda, where she would continue with her medication. But because she was not briefed, which I want now to us to agree, that the communication to her at that point, she was not fully briefed that, look, you have been found to have this, then therefore you're going to undergo through this process and then be repatriated. Because when you're sick, you cannot work. What was stated actually happened, and that's how this girl came back. No one paid the ticket the ticket never came from State House. A ticket never came from anywhere. The ticket of her return came from the recruitment company that had externalized her, which is Alaska, through the partner on the other side, because she was not able to complete her, to do her obligation, which was to work, and having been cleared. And that's why I think on the other side, we should also look at it that because had this lady traveled irregularly, it would have been very hard to see who to get to be able to return her, because no one would be, like we've seen the cases of those in UAE. You cannot say this company took me, because those companies are not there. There are no companies, legal companies that took them. They were traffickers or agents. Like we've seen from the 1,600 plus that have so far been returned. None of those mentioned a licensed recruitment company to have externalized her. So that brings to me to the issue of the recruitment process. I'll allow me, because of time, to hint.
Yeah, you can just hint, because you've largely really mentioned it already.
Yes. So in that, I mentioned that these people, of course, once they have been sourced from their villages, or for those who have come in, first of all, the job order is attained or is issued by the employing company, or in this case, the foreign company. That job order is taken to our embassy in the destination country. If it is Saudi Arabia, it is taken to the Ugandan embassy in Riyadh. It is verified. There is money that is paid, which I unfortunately, my brother David never mentioned, but he mentioned the 1,100, which I will talk about. There's money which is $30 that is paid to the government of Uganda per job vacancy. So if we're talking of, say, 100 maids, the government of Uganda receives 3,000 before anything takes place. So for the government to be able to approve that indeed this job has what it requires, the job order, the company that is going to receive these ladies is accredited, is licensed, first of all, by the government of Saudi Arabia, but also accredited by the embassy to have the accommodation that is required to have these jobs, or even these people who want to employ are actually in existence. Now, once the job order has been approved by the embassy, it is sent to the ministry here of labor. And once it is approved, an approval, of course, is issued, and the company is allowed at that point to advertise for these jobs. That's why sometimes you believe me that you have had companies that are advertising that, for example, a job of domestic workers, come as you are, we shall process for you passport, we shall process for you visa. So you come only, you're required to pay 20,000, which the regulation states, which is administrative cost. Now, this money, or the process of these things are not free. Of course, the passports are paid here, about 400,000 express, because that's what we use, paid here, the Ministry of Internal Affairs. The visas are paid for. The training, which I talked about, the 14 days, which is 100,000. Sorry, $100 is paid by the company here. There's the medical, which I talked about, the GCC, 100,000 of that, plus all the other costs. Now, these costs feed into the 1,100 that the government of Uganda negotiated and signed with the government of Saudi Arabia. So it is not looked as if the Ugandan company receives this much because that is what its cut is. That is not its cut. The agreement that the bilateral government of Uganda signed on the basis of international labor standard called employer pays principle. The employer pays principle requires that you, who is going to employ the person, pays for the entire recruitment and travel costs of the employee. So in this case, this is where the 1,100 fits. Now, that's why the companies advertise and call people that they will process for them. It is not because they want them so much, or it is not their own money. This is money that comes from the other country. Now, After that advert, a job the candidates, of course, are interviewed at different levels depending on the requirements of the job. And once those who are found to be fit, that fall within that the category to travel, are cleared by the government of Uganda. So a clearance is issued. We receive it, the company receives it, the airport authorities receive it, the embassy where the people are going, for example, Saudi Arabia, receive and expect that this number of people will be coming from Uganda through company A, and where they're going to work is A, B, C, D. So the clearance is issued. Now, the medical, which we'll call the GCC for the issuance of visa, is done, because however much the country of Uganda, the Ugandan government has cleared you to travel, doesn't mean the receiving country will accept you, because it has to understand depending on its principles, and in this case the medical principle. So they issued the candidates undergo this GCC medical tests, and against which visas are issued when they are medically fit and externalized. For the case of those going to war zones, or those going for security jobs, for example in Iraq, in Somalia, for them they undergo what we call vetting, which was previously done by ISO, and now it's done by Interpol, and they are issued a certificate of good conduct, because they're going to carry guns and all that. And upon their return, of course, they're also verified for different security reasons. The issue of the 1,100, I was able to explain it within that way. It could have been ad hoc, but at least I've been able to explain for the interest of time. Why are people... okay, I also explained your issue, Martin, of where people address the way they addressed at the time of travel. I did explain the issue of culture, and allow me, maybe if I've left out something, but I think I've tried to hit around.
Yes.
For the interest of time, to be able to catch on everything.
Yes, thank you very much for that. I am sure others are going to also have a response. So we have reached the end of this show. I want to give one round of 2 minutes each of our participants to respond. And yeah, Ronnie, you'll honestly have the last say. Yeah, because you had quite a lot of information to give here. So I'll allow 2 minutes of each. But yeah, you asked me for the source of the number of people who have died in Qatar. And of course, we know that the protection of migrant workers in Gulf states is still dire, and they have been documented. There's been a lot of documentation of the treatment of migrant workers. And like I said, you can only speak for the labor, licensed labor exporters, or that you are under your umbrella. You may not speak for the other nations, and many things that happen there may be out of your reach. But we appreciate that there are steps that are being done in Uganda to ensure that migrant workers are protected, but there's still a lot to be done in the Gulf states and also other states. It's not only the Gulf states that you said, there are other states that other countries where migrant workers are, and the rights of migrant workers all over the world, the rights are still dire, and there is still much more improvement needed in that area. This, the Guardian on 23rd February 2021, reported, and the title is Revealed, 6,500 migrant workers have died in Qatar since World Cup awarded. So if you do a simple Google search and say migrant workers who have died in Qatar, it will be able to bring that. I'm not sure about Ugandans on that list, but there are a number of migrant workers that have faced, have had death due to that. So I want to come to you, David, Darren, and then Ronnie. David, your parting shots as we conclude. And I think it's also good to add in some positive, because we've talked about negative so much on this. On this, please unmute, but it's okay to put also a positive and suggest what should be done.
Yes, as we conclude, First of all, I want to appreciate the efforts of these companies that export labor. They have done something. They have done something. Government has done something in the same regard. The issue of unemployment is a big one to us, and we all know it. And therefore, all our invested efforts in finding solutions need to be appreciated. And I am very positive on this. I think I started by mentioning that it's okay for people to find decent work wherever they can get it. But my concern is that there should be systems to provide protection to these people in their search for work and even as they do this work. I wanted to mention something about some statistics here. From 2019 to date, Uganda has registered 88 deaths of migrant workers in Saudi Arabia. So my friend Mukundane, even when I admit that people die from everywhere, but such a figure becomes questionable. 88 deaths. And only from Saudi Arabia, 88 deaths in total. And out of the 88, 69 are from Saudi Arabia. So that creates, to raise eyebrows. Why should this big number be from this specific country? And therefore, my appeal to government would be that we try as much as possible to harness the operations to these countries. Our governments need to come in and find more and be more proactive, find the means of protecting our people as they do this work, bearing in mind that these are people who are contributing a lot to our development as an economy. I am told URA collects around $30 for each migrant worker who gets work, especially through these Middle East-based companies. We collect around 7 billion in remittances. So these are a lot of money, and therefore people who are giving you this money should be protected, so that we are able to continue making money, helping Ugandans to earn, but also keeping the lives of our people. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, David. And actually, the 7 billion was for 1 month. If I get the figures correct, so no, so this is it's a lucrative business, I must say. So 7 billion wasn't even just for there; it's for 1 month. So
it is.
Yeah, and the $30, yeah, indeed, like Ronnie had also mentioned. Yes, so Darren.
Yes, thank you very much. This has really been very, I don't know. You said we should have some positive parting shots. I think I'll start with those. I don't want to end this conversation like a person who's really against the labor export industry. But one thing that I'm really against is human trafficking, the human rights violation, because at the end of the day, we are actually not, yes, it's business. It's a way of revamping the Ugandan economy. It's a way of, trying to make ends meet if really things fail here. But we should bear in mind, like the people, these are our brothers, these are our sisters, these are family, these are friends. So as we do business, Ronnie and colleagues, as we do business, as we do these exchanges, let's bear in mind that these are actually human beings we are dealing with. So about the positive thing that I should do, maybe really highlight is how the labor externalization is it has really brought back Ugandan economy. Like somewhere we are seeing the money that is really coming in, how it's helping a lot, and maybe also for also the tourism industry, there's a way it is really benefiting from it. So it's 30% positivity, I would say. Also, my closing remarks will be is I also before I give my parting shots to correct Ronnie, is we do not have a bilateral agreement with Saudi Arabia. The only countries we have are Jordan, Oman, and Oman, yeah, Jordan and Oman, and those are and UAE, but we do not really have we did not really have an agreement with Saudi Arabia, but if we do, you should also correct me on that, but I think we don't have, and we should be working on it very soon. Then my parting shots would be is, I think we need, the government could really put up a startup law. This startup law that aims at protecting startups for young people, and such a law should have funds, funds that are really supporting new innovations, and they should make the funds accessible to these young people, so that even as a young graduate moves out of school, there are funds, I know there are these systems already in place, but they should make these funds as more accessible to these young people as possible. You never know who would maybe not really have to go out of the country if these funds are really available for them to do the small businesses in their capacity. And also the other thing is education. I think we need to also revamp our education system to be more of not more of like, sitting in class, but more of vocational training, more vocational education, that as a child, as a young person, as a youth gets out of school, at least they have skill in their head, they know they can really survive in this important economy. They can make a living for themselves without actually having to seek employment out there. Because some of them go when they're not even mentally ready, they're not emotionally ready. They don't even know what they're going to do, but because at some point it's the only way out, they are going to just go. But what happens if a young person is trained, is skilled, and they can really survive,
Thank you very much, Darren, for that. Over to you, Ronnie, in 3 minutes.
Thank you, Martin. Before I actually go further, I want to make this very clear. And Darren, with the due respect, please allow me correct you. I'm a practitioner in this, and maybe you are not. There is no bilateral labor agreement between Uganda and Oman. It has never been signed. It has never existed. We know there are over 100,000 Ugandans there, but there is no bilateral labor agreement with Oman. The only bilateral labor agreement that is operational is between Uganda and Saudi Arabia. I will repeat, the only operational bilateral labor agreement is between Uganda and Saudi Arabia. And for that information, I request you, Martin, to, once the show ends, to furnish me with the details of Darren, and I ably share with her that bilateral. That's being said, it is true, labor extension will not end unemployment issues. And it is not the only solution. There are so many other solutions that the government has put in place, but labor extension is one of those that can temporarily answer this. And besides, as I said, it's a global phenomenon. People migrate from one country to the other, as we are seeing. The positives about this, we must all agree. There are so many, they are enormous. People will have challenges, but those benefiting are the most. We have things like socio-economic benefits. We have seen, I will just give a very recent example, during the COVID period, when our businesses here were closed, when our families here were not working, then a big number of families were being taken care of by the people who are working abroad. That we have records from Bank of Uganda. They will show you the remittances that were coming in, money that was coming in to take care of these families. We have the foreign exchange earning, which my brother David was talking about, 7 million. It is $900 million from the Middle East alone, not globally. Globally, Uganda receives about $1.3 billion as remittances from Ugandans working abroad. But from the Middle East alone, $900 million annually, money that comes in the country. And of course, I did mention the $30 that is direct, or what we call non-tax revenue. And this money that is paid at the passports, because this is money that comes from somewhere else, from another country, not from the sale of coffee or money made from salons and all that. Then we have skills acquisition. Believe me, I'll actually give you a very simple assignment. Most of the people selling what you see as CCTV, or those are people from the research are people who have been working abroad under customer care, and specifically when you go under customer care security, most of them are put under CCTV. So they have acquired that skill. Just to mention a few, because we have so many of those. You believe me that the level of our technology here is still much below that of those other countries. So there has been so much in terms of skill acquisition, but also the communal, what we call communal benefits, issues of unemployment, fighting unemployment. When you look at the companies here licensed, there are so far over 300 licensed recruitment companies. On average, each company recruits employs about 20 workers on average. And that gives you the picture, simple picture here, that at the Ugandan level, the recruitment companies employ over 6,000 Ugandans, and directly, but we also know there are those who are indirectly benefiting from this sector. So I don't want to go into the death numbers and that of David. I will not go there, because I will also share statistics of those who travel every year, but I will not go there. Ideally, I would like to thank you for this opportunity, and also look forward to having more of these where we can share ideas, not only what is happening, but also share ideas of what can be done. Because to me, that is what I normally look at. And this would call, for example, the government's intervention. For example, we have 100,000 Ugandans in Oman. What has the government done to ensure that the safety and rights of these Ugandans, even if they traveled irregularly there, are observed and protected? And that would be signing a bilateral agreement with that country. There are so many Ugandans in Qatar. There's absence of a bilateral agreement. There are so many Ugandans in UAE. As I said at the start, 100,000 Ugandans in UAE, 75,000 of those are there irregularly. Only 25,000 were cleared by the government. What is the government doing to ensure the protection of these people is observed? In the absence of a bilateral agreement, always these issues will come up. But when the bilateral issues can come up, but there's someone to take responsibility. And to me, that is more important. So
thank you very much,
challenges, and that, thank you so much for the time.
Yes, thank you very much for this input, and I thank all our conversationists who have been on this show. I will ask the admin to share Darren's details or contacts so that you're able to exchange information. But I can also confirm, even from the ministry, from the parliament's website, that there is a bilateral agreement between Saudi Arabia and Uganda in terms of labor externalization. Thank you for being part of this show. On this show, we continue to educate communities. We continue to talk about issues that affect communities. And today's was about labor externalization. It's an important aspect of our society, our economy. Every one of us has a friend they know, or someone they know, a friend, a neighbor, a relative, who has, gone to mainly the Middle East for labor. So this is a topic that concerns all of us. We should continue to make this industry professional, ethical, and should have regard for human rights, and human rights generally, because in there lies human dignity. I thank you, and I've been your moderator, Martin. I thank our Center for Constitutional Governance, Civic Space TV, for convening this, and I wish you a blessed week.